Hello there. It's Monday, May 11th, 2020, and time for our first daily briefing of the week. These come to you weekdays in the 1 p.m., 5 p.m., and 8 p.m. hours on KLAM and KCDB. They are also archived on our YouTube channel, youtube.com/Cordova TV. We're visiting with Mayor Koplin here to start the week, kind of recap where things went. It was a busy week last week with our first case with some of the businesses classified as non-essential starting to reopen. So we'll kind of look over some of those things, and it's a big week ahead. Very important week as the first opener is coming up. So here's what the mayor had to say during our chat on today's Daily Briefing. Mayor Koplin, a new week in front of us after, and a very interesting, you could say almost perfect storm of events right toward the end of last week, with our first case coinciding with the effort to gradually begin reopening the businesses. So I'm interested in your impressions, maybe how things have gone since the discovery of that case, and how the response has been. Does it feel like things have been working?
It really does. Just, I guess, an update on the case last week. There was an individual, they tested negative in Seattle. They did their 14-day retest here in Cordova after they'd been here for several days. They tested positive. The next day, they retested that individual. They did test positive. They still, to this day, don't have symptoms. So they're just remaining in quarantine and until they're through and clean and test clean. And then they have, I believe, a 72-hour period just to make sure they're beyond any potential for shedding. And then they have tested everybody that worked in and around that individual. And every single one of those tests has come back negative. And they sent all the people that traveled with them and sent to Anchorage and retested, and those all came back negative. In other words, they took backup tests and sent those to Anchorage, and those tests came back negative. So it is looking very, very much like this was an isolated case. The state did their tracking and follow through and looked at each and every individual point of contact and the degree of contact, and feels like, basically the summary is that the very strict, very careful protocols that were in place worked.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, so how do you feel about the effectiveness of it? And it sounds, at least at this point, like things did what they were designed to do.
Absolutely. And I can't tell you how much positive feedback we got from Wednesday's radio program, especially here in the CEO of Ocean Beauty on and getting his direct input. As with any process, you see places where you could have improved. And so we identified some things that could have gone better and have put those elements in place. Trident Seafoods, everybody recognizes the effectiveness of testing. They didn't require in their plan to test their employees as they come out of quarantine in Anchorage to work in Cordova, but they went ahead and tested them all because I think partly because we saw the effectiveness here. We are still working to put some more medical pieces in place, making sure that we're absolutely ready and developing big enough stockpiles that we can start doing broad-based testing throughout the season here. That will surely keep us in great shape throughout the year and not have to worry so much about an outbreak. As we can identify and isolate cases through the course of the summer, whether it's people in the community or in the processors or fishing fleets, it'll look, we hope, very much like this one, where we have very limited cases, very limited spread from those cases. We just manage those on a case-by-case basis and keep the community protected and have a good fishing season, which is the objectives.
Well, and of course, this is a big week for that. I'm sure that all eyes, the city council, the IMT, the doctors, everybody, this is what they have been preparing themselves for. So, what are your thoughts as we get to ever closer to the first opener?
It is all eyes on Cordova. There's national concern. I can tell you our congressional delegation's been working directly with the president on this. They've made a lot of resources available. They're very concerned that we don't have the kind of outbreaks that they had in meat processing plants down south and some of the tragedies there. Fortunately, our state took quick and effective action statewide. That really helps Cordova because the backup medical resources that we really need, the professionals who have the equipment and the staff and the training to manage cases, are available. So the state's good work is helping Cordova's medical team, and that's kind of a new development. We were afraid that the whole state would be overwhelmed at once. And the state has been reaching out with resources, and they're watching very carefully because every failure is an opportunity to improve. Every success is an opportunity to pattern, and we definitely want Cordova to be the pattern. Yeah. I personally spent a lot of time this weekend walking the dock, talking with fishermen, looking at protocols, looking at businesses, making suggestions where I saw gaps or shortfalls, working with the incident team to shore up any holes, and with our medical team. And frankly, we're in that A- range, both from the fishing fleets and the compliance and the planning and protocols that have been put in place. And it is a hump, though.
Yeah.
This is the week. We've got 50 to 60 fishermen. We've got processors coming in daily for the next 3 days. They're going to be getting their boats in shape, getting parts, getting groceries, gearing up. Now more than ever is the time for vigilance. It's time for personal protection. Stay home if you don't need to come to town. It's probably going to be hard to find a parking place anyway.
Yeah, that's true.
And keep washing your hands, wearing your masks, and businesses do the same. And Thursday, as with most years, it'll probably look kind of like a ghost town after all the activity during the week.
Sure.
So we are on a hump here, and I know people are getting tired of the rules. The incident team's been at this for 9 weeks, but this is a time to really get to the finish line. And then as we transition from preparation and planning and getting the pieces in place, it's pretty much in the hands of our processors and medical team to follow through throughout the summer and make sure that we don't have an outbreak and that we are able to manage individual cases as they come along.
Yeah. So what about the personal rules now, again, kind of to review, I guess, because these measures come into particularly sharp focus given that the population is going to grow. So, I mean, you have been a pretty strong advocate all along for the idea that a person's safety, their odds of catching this, really are first and foremost with each individual person, and success lies to a high degree in people minimizing their own chances of exposure. So let's go over again. What are the key things people need to do to reduce those chances of catching this?
You bet. And I'll start first with some of the rules because there's still some misunderstanding, and those are ever-changing. Later in the week, I think we'll talk a little bit about the transition plan. And even though it seems odd now to think about demobbing and what comes after, the state is going to continue to relax rules. Cordova will likely follow in some fashion. And so as we think about going from gill netting to seining to sport fishing, each of those poses its own risk and things. We want to structure this so that we continue to keep the community safe while allowing our businesses the opportunity to get back on their feet as we get more and more resources on the medical side and planning side to support that relaxed activities.
Sure.
So right now, if somebody comes into the community from within the state, they are not required by the city or the state to quarantine. And as critical workers in the seafood industry, they are allowed to go into businesses, get their groceries, their equipment, everything. So those protocols that we keep repeating for employees and clerks in stores, wash your hands, wear your masks, Wash your hands before you touch your face. Good to wash your hands before or use sanitizer before you go into a facility. Do it again on the way out. Then you can't bring virus in or carry it out with you to your home. The harbor's a hot spot. That's what it says in the signage and everything. There are a lot of people coming in from a lot of directions. If you work in the harbor, in the open air, and with masks on, those are good protections. It's not as likely an environment to contract the virus. However, as you head home, it's a good time. Be wiping down those contact surfaces, your vehicle surfaces. My wife and I sanitize our food and the things that we bring home from the stores. I'm the one who tends to be going to town most, so I I sanitize my hands, wipe down door handles as I go back to the house, and then again practice our social distancing. And so those same rules apply: social distance, sanitize, wear your masks, and we'll be fine.
Okay, well, it certainly gives us the best odds. And, testing, it's sort of in conclusion here, testing has been on the minds of people all over the country. And we here in Cordova have opened up some new opportunities for that. So just in case anybody didn't hear, what's being done to expand the testing?
So anybody that arrives new to Cordova in the last 14 days can have free testing. And we've talked about this a lot because I know people are concerned about, well, it's inconvenient and what if I test positive and everything. And we've been thinking about how to characterize this. The way I internalize it is positive outcomes. That's what we're shooting for. And we look at the positive case that Ocean Beauty had, and that's a positive outcome, right? We know that the screening is effective, that it works, helps us identify an individual. They're under quarantine anyway. So it extends the quarantine period a little bit, but it keeps their coworkers safe, keeps the community safe, keeps our friends and family safe. So take advantage and encourage others to take advantage of that free testing. It's just a great way to say thank you to the community for working hard to keep fishing season open. It's a great way to make sure that we don't inadvertently cause an outbreak in the harbor or with the processors that might restrict our fishing season or cause businesses to face even bigger challenges. So the testing is a great opportunity. It's 2 to 4 p.m. Every day this week, and I don't have in my head which places are which. I know they're doing them Sundays at the Alonka Clinic.
Yeah, Monday and Wednesday, Alonka takes the lead. They're near the Episcopal Church, and then Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday, CCMC does it in the ambulance bay.
Okay, great. Yeah, thank you for that update. So yeah, go take advantage of that. And I've got even employees that I have here in town, and then I'm going to be meeting some visitors from out of state later in the week, and I'll probably go get a test afterwards just to make sure that I am not a potential vector,
Sure.
despite the care we take there. So
yeah.
Last thing is just the rules. Just remember the rules are changing, and please be courteous on both sides. I know we had some people are coming into town, even though you are traveling within state, even though there's no city or state requirements. Businesses still have the right to refuse service, and when I say refuse service, most businesses they're checking. They may not allow you into the store, but they do have provisions for delivering, for ordering, for pickup. And so I just ask people, if a business does refuse you service, they're just trying to protect their employees and their at-risk families at home. And so please be respectful. And the same for businesses and people. If someone does travel to Cordova from in-state, they don't have to quarantine. They are allowed to go into businesses and around the town. They only have to wear a mask in the harbor, on the ramps and floats. They don't have to wear it on their boat. They don't have to wear it as they're walking around more than 6 feet from people. So we just need to make sure we know the rules before we start calling and asking for enforcement. What I found works really well is just be courteous.
Yeah.
I saw someone in the store that wasn't wearing a mask, and I asked them, excuse me, could you please wear your mask? It turned out they were one of the exempt individuals. They had respiratory problems. They're exempt from wearing a mask. They were being very careful to keep well away from anyone else because they're at risk. But, it's just a courteous exchange. That's all we need, is just to be courteous, remind each other of the rules and follow them. Mm-hmm. And that's the best enforcement.
Sure. Well, and again, that extends to something that we've been pushing a lot, is for not only the businesses to know, the non-essential businesses, to know what rules they're expected to follow, but for any customers of those types of businesses to also look up those rules so they know what to expect. And so everybody's on the same page. And Kathy reinforced that in this great show we did on Friday that was targeted to the businesses that were going to be just starting to reopen. The fact that the more not only the proprietors know, but also the customers know, if everybody's on the same sheet, that reduces the chances for unmet expectations and some of the negativity that comes from that. So taking a look at those things, and the city has got the links for non-essential business rules, the correct links on cityofcordova.net. We've got them on ours as well, our website, cordovaradio.com. So making that two-way is I think, going to help keep a lot of people happier. Any final thoughts here before we head on to other things, Mr. Mayor?
Not really. I think just the clearest way I could communicate where I think we're at right now is, my father's at risk. He's out of state and he's not essential, so unfortunately can't come to visit. But if I had a choice, I'd be flying him to Cordova. That's how I feel about where we're at. I would tell him, stay home this week. Don't go to town. Let's go out and do some fishing or something and practice these safety measures. But I feel good about where we're at, and we're going to continue to be vigilant and just ask that the community and those who are here to work do the same.
Well, and it was real. I really enjoyed that program. You referenced our program we did last Wednesday when we had to talk about the first case. And when I asked Dr. Zink, of all people, would you be okay being a Cordovan in the midst of all of this? She basically said yes, that we're doing a good job with this and we're on top of it. So please pass my thanks on to everybody on the team that's working so hard, and we'll look forward to chatting with you again sometime soon.
All right, thank you, and have a great day.
Big thanks again to Mayor Koplin for joining us for the daily briefing, heard in the 1 p.m., 5 p.m., and 8 p.m. hours on KLAM and KCDV. I want to remind you quickly of a couple of shows that we did recently, a couple of talk shows that are of particular value. The one from last Friday with the Chamber of Commerce with Kathy Renfelt. If you're a business owner, that would be a real good one to check out at youtube.com/Cordova TV. And then I think it was the previous Friday. I don't know, it all mushes together, of course, at this point. But we had that show with two of our top local mental health professionals about how to deal with some of the challenges and the stresses of going through a pandemic when the country hasn't had to do something like that, I guess pretty much since 1918 in terms of a wide-scale event. So they had really good things to say as well, and both of those shows, like we said, it would be the May 8th show with the Chamber, and then I think May 1st was the talk show that we did with the mental health folks. And the talk shows are the ones that have the all red letters on the YouTube channel, Town Meeting Talk Show. These briefings have blue letters, so they're a little easier to tell apart. And again, this briefing that you're hearing now, if you want to share it with somebody online or listen to it again at your own pace, youtube.com/Cordova TV. Again, thanks to the mayor. Thank you for listening. We'll resume our regular programming now on the Clam and the Eagle.